again. Lawless. Come on. Right. Yo. It's like this.
Good evening and welcome to 30 Something and Verging. I'm super excited. We are on episode 8. That means we have been kicking butt and pushing out some content, some consistent content. So since January 26th, you've gotten at least a podcast or two from Akila Miles at 30 Something and Verging. And we're so excited to have you here with us this evening. Over the course of this past month, we've talked about knowing your worth, different parts of relationships, friendships. We've talked about building different things, building relationships. And today we're getting into legacy, like creating your own dash. What is it that people will say that from the point which you were born to the day that you happen to pass, that you've created? And I thought that the 8th episode would be a great episode to utilize because, you know, that was Kobe's first number when he entered the Lakers. And that was Kobe's first number when he entered the Lakers. And I'm sorry, y'all, I made a mistake and I had my phone on sound, knowing that it's connected to this stuff. But at any rate, today is, when you see this episode, when you see the YouTube footage and when you hear this, it will be dropping on February 28th, which the 2 and the 8, 2 for his beautiful daughter, Gianna, and 8 for his number as well. And I felt like he would be one of the greatest people to talk about when dealing with legacy building, following your dreams and what you do when you create your dash. The intro music was Kobe. I love Kobe. That was Tyra Banks singing on the track with him. I forgot that Kobe had an album. Yeah, that was, and he put his all into that rap thing. He even had a song with Brian McKnight. Do y'all remember that song? And he had a video for the Kobe song, and he had the video with the Brian McKnight song. I can't remember an actual video for an entire album, but hey, like Kobe dropped the album for what I know. So I want to talk about like my introduction to Kobe Bryant, what that did for me. I also want to talk about like the legacy I feel that he left behind and like what I'm doing to work on my legacy, and then also offer you all the opportunity to chime in and tell me different things. If you would like, you can shoot me a text, people that have the number, and if you want to share something. And I'm also hoping to get a couple of calls here from some college friends to call in and talk about this as well. But I want to talk about my introduction to Kobe and also what I think that legacy is. For me, I feel that legacy is the things that you create on your journey, right? These are all of the things that it could be your job. It could be like the path that you light for the people behind you, including your siblings, your nieces and nephews, the things that you do in your community, the things that you do for yourself, for the family that you create, right? And it's just those things, the embodiment of those things, and then how those things, we in turn utilize those things to help us and support us in our way of building up others. One of my favorite things to do is to help people. Some people, when they get my help, if they're close to me, they get a tough nudge because of the fact that I like to push people. I push you to be better because I like to be better, like to do my best. And especially when you know that people have like great talents and different things. And I feel like that's what Kobe like pushed out of himself and what he like meant to so many people, especially so many of us as his fans. Like thinking about like his Mamba mentality, like going into that zone and knowing that with every step, my intent is to crush my opponent and be successful, right? And also, like even thinking about after he got out of the game, Kobe would do things where he supported and helped other athletes, right? Especially like with his show, with his podcast, the way that he thought about like talking to kids and getting knowledge to kids through the BrownEyes podcast and different things like that. So I think that all of those were actual great things, right? And I want to talk about things that I've done thus far, and just like, this is not a boast or brag, but just thinking about like the day that, so I'll talk about the day that he died, and then like how I was introduced to him. So the day that Sunday when the crash happened, I saw it on Facebook, but you know how people are always posting like salacious things to try to like clickbait you or whatever. And when I saw the posting, a person went under there and was like fake news. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And I went on, I was cleaning up. And old friend called and was like, he asked me how I was doing, and I was like, oh, I'm cool, how you, or whatever. And then the person was like, well, Kobe, you see what happened to Kobe? I was like, oh, that's fake news. Like, no, that did not happen or whatever. And he's like, no, it's for real. Like, it's on ESPN, it's here, it's there. And I'm like, I'm still saying, well, I think people have it wrong because, like, I guess in my mind, I'm like, Kobe Bryant, like, no, or whatever. And my god sister, I got off the phone with that person, and then my god sister called me. And before she could complete her sentence with his name, she was in tears. I was like, oh my God, like, oh, so this, what I said to her was, this shit is real. And we sat on the phone, we were looking at, she has like, I think the ESPN app on her phone. So she was looking at like ESPN updates and all those different things. And we was just crying, talking about like, oh, we were at Alcorn, we would have Lakers parties and all these things or whatever. And I was just extremely sad because I thought about like how I had been connected to Kobe. So I think as kids, we all have different relationships with parents. And my mom is a tough love parent. My mom is the second oldest of 4, and she's the only girl. And my mother was raised extremely tough. And what I want to say to kids right now is that remember that your parents are human beings too. They're just growing and learning just as you are growing and learning. So they're trying to get it right as best they can, but they're doing it based off of whatever particular model they had in front of them. And they're doing the best that they can. So please remember that. And not to say that my mother did anything wrong or anything like that, but she gave tough love. Her thing was you had to be tough. And I have friends and their parents were not going to say cooler, but lenient. They were extremely more lenient than my mom. My mom was like, F that, them pole lights come on, you need to be in this house, whatever. You ain't doing nothing. You ain't doing nothing. So, I didn't really realize, I think like a couple of weeks ago, some kids at school told me, Miss Miles, we don't think teachers are humans. And I was like, I honestly don't get that. But we're talking as if like they don't see the human side of you. And it wasn't until I sat in the house and I watched my mother watch a Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal basketball game when they were playing for the Lakers. That's when I recognized her as a human being, because I was able to see her have fun, to see her smile, to see her be excited about Kobe and Shaq. Like Kobe and Shaq, and Kobe was a boy, even though Shaq was there. Like she was excited for the duo, but it was Kobe who she was excited to see. And at first, I thought Kobe was an arrogant ass little basketball player because, Kobe, he wouldn't pass the ball. And if you watch the memorial, Kobe said that, it was an M-E in team, not an I. So he was concerned about him, right? Which is understandable, right? But it allowed me to see my mom as a human. Like to see the humanistic side of her was such a joy. And then I started being like, okay, I want to understand basketball, because at first I didn't care. So I was like, I want to understand basketball because I want to be able to shout like she's shouting when the game is on, because I feel like that could make a better connection, right? And my mom purposefully would put the game on and shit talk or whatever, and my brothers, all us, to be in the front room watching the game, and it was totally awesome. So it allowed me to see her as a real person, right? Then later on, I dated someone, and that person that I dated was also a huge Kobe fan. And it was through both he and my mother that I was able to actually see who Kobe was. And I think that Kobe was like cocky or condescending, but he was confident in who he was as a person. He was confident in his ability. So because of that particular confidence, people were like, oh, he's cocky, he's whatever. But that wasn't the case. It was like, I'm putting in all this practice so I know that I'm good. So I'm straight. Like this is not a cockiness. This is like the confidence in that. And I think part of the legacy that he leaves behind for Black men is that hard work beats talent. While he was talented, it was all of his hard work that he put into his talent that made him extremely successful, right? It was those things that allowed him to be able to see like any of his errors and be able to be a man and correct those particular things and push himself and not go out to the club when I think Allen Iverson shares a story about like going to LA and Kobe taking him out and going out to eat, and he asks Allen like, hey, what are you gonna do? No, ask Allen, what are you getting ready to do? And Allen's like, shit, I'm gonna go to the club. What you getting ready to do? And he's like, I'm going to the gym, right? So like he knew like, hey, I can go and have this little taste of fun, but after that, because I am determined to be great, this is what I'm going to do. And his greatness did not just push him, but it also pushed those people that were around him, right? I watched an interview that he did. I can't remember who, but he did an interview talking about when we lost. When I say we, talking about the Lakers, when we lost to the Boston Celtics. And Pau Gasol was on the team at that time. And Team USA went to, I think it was China, and they played in the Olympics and they won against Spain, which was Pau's team. So he said, he liked to like mentally get at you and like push you. So when he came back to training camp for the next year, inside of Pau's locker was Kobe gold medal. And he was like, so like, what are you going to do? Like, we got our ass kicked here by the Celtics. And then when we went to, I hope I'm correct, it was China at the time. When they went there, we kicked your ass there. So like, what is it that you're going to do? And if you watch Pau's interview about the loss of Kobe, he talks about that specific thing. And he was like, that's how Kobe pushed me. That's how he made me like get tougher, get harder. He was like, when I saw the gold medal just hanging in my locker, he was like, he wanted to say, you motherfucker, but he was like, he knew what it was that Kobe was saying, like, you need to push yourself. And I want to admonish to us that we need to push ourselves to whatever the goal is or the thing is that we are reaching for, right? There are so many things, like for instance, 30-something and verging. I talk to a lot of my friends because I have several friends that are business owners, and we're just talking about like dealing with the first year jitters. And like I was telling my friend, like the crazy thing is that I don't have them. I was asked by someone like, hey, so like, I know you made so many sales and you had this and you did that. Like, wow. How is it going? And I'm like, well, I've only really been in business a month. And if you know anything about business, you know that your first couple of months to year is going to be more of your work and your money put into it than it is going to be you collecting something from it. And when I was telling my friend, I was like, and like some people would be shook by the fact that they haven't really made anything. And I'm like, I'm not shook. I'm excited. Each day there's something different and exciting that's happening. And I think I'm forging a path with this light on it that's letting people know like, hey, you can follow your dreams regardless of how old you are. I am about 56. I'm extremely old. I'm not that old, but I'm old. Okay. I am old. But I decided to follow my dreams. I've always talked about having a website. I've always talked about publishing my books. I've always wanted my own podcast. And yes, these things cost, but the cost that I'm putting in now, the things that I'm incurring, just like Kobe telling AI, like, hey, we chilled, we had fun, but now I'm going to go to the gym and put in some work. That's what I feel like I'm doing now. I'm putting in the work to ensure that my business is successful. So when I am up late at night thinking of ideas, writing out please don't talk about my handwriting because I'm getting ready to show y'all. And it's going to look a little funny because I have my favorite blue pens that I was writing with and it bled through the paper. So please don't talk about it. But when I am like up in the middle of the night writing these things, like writing notes, planning out content, how I'm going to set up my day, what it is that I would like to do. If you look on the back, I got more content, like trying to decide how is it that I'm going to make my website more accessible, more fun, give my subscribers something to see. That is part of the work, and it makes me excited because this is mine, right? And I feel like that's what made Kobe so excited about his life with his kids and his wife and with basketball, and then what he was doing with Granity Studios. What he was doing with that, he was creating a legacy. And I remember, I think if I'm not mistaken, in a memorial, Vanessa said like he wanted Natalia to take over his business. So he's left something, even though he's gone, he's left something for his kids that are here, right? He's left something for them to see. And all I think that I want to say on this particular podcast is I want you to think about the things that you're creating. What are the things that it is that you are doing? How are you, if you have 4 sons, how is it that you're making your sons better? What is it that you're doing to them, in front of them, and with them to help them to be better men in today's society? If you have a daughter, how are you being the best girl dad possible? How are you supporting her and showing her what love is so that she doesn't go out here and sell herself short for some fuckboy? What is it that you're doing to push them? If you are one of the leaders in your family, what is it that you're doing to help lead your family? How are you supporting them? How are you pushing them? How are you driving them to get something done? I can remember I am the 3rd oldest of 8, and for a long time, I had more of a mother relationship with my younger siblings, the ones under me, than I did of a sister relationship, because I was the mom for the most part when my mommy was at work. So if my mom was at work, Keela was the one that was at home, like, hey, clean up, let's do this, let's do that, put that up, go take a bath, getting you ready for school, whatever it was. And I remember maybe about 10 years ago in 2010, like sending all of my siblings a separate text and telling them like, hey, because I was in mother mode, I wasn't in sister mode, so that they had never experienced me as a sister. That always experienced me as like this, I was the sledgehammer behind mama. So I text them and tell them like, hey, what I can't apologize for is wanting the best for you, but what I can apologize for is not offering myself up to you as your sister. And I want to do that. So like, I want us to build stronger relationships and stronger bonds. They may not remember this, but if they go back, some of them received it on Facebook. Some of them received it via text. If they still have those same phone numbers, I still have the same phone number, but I now have a Galaxy Note. So I know I don't have that in my phone. But I sent this text, and, you know, I can give one specific. I remember Eric texting me back and saying, you know, Keela, you were just doing what you needed to do for us at that time. And I was like, yeah, like, you know, we have to be what it is that we're supposed to be for people when we're there with them. But I wanted them to know that I still want you to know me as your sister. I don't want you to just know me as Mama Sledgehammer. I don't want you to know me as the enforcer. I want you to know me as your sister. Like, get to know me on that level. Let me support you in that way. And that was like a big deal for me. It was a big deal for me because I was maturing into a young woman, and I wanted to be able to recognize where I did not do well, right? And it wasn't that I had done a terrible job, right? But it was that I hadn't allowed them into who Akila was, right? They saw the essence of Akila, but they did not get it. They know like, oh, Keela don't play. If mom wants something, then Keela gonna do da da da, or Keela gonna take mama's side, or Keela gonna make us do this. Like that's what it was. And I didn't want them to just know that. I wanted to know. And what they did gain from that was that they knew that I would support them. They knew that I would be there for them no matter what. But I just wanted us to have like a better sister-brother relationship, right? So that was like 10 years ago. And now, let me get back to my questions that I have for myself. When I'm thinking about legacy, I think about what his legacy did for me, like how it connected to my life and like the dash that I was creating. So it had always been planned for my podcast to drop on January 26th. And when Kobe passed, I called my production manager, Anthony, and I think maybe I texted him. And I was like, hey, I don't think I should drop this podcast because we had already recorded it. And I was like, I don't think I should drop this podcast, man. Like, ain't nobody gonna give no fuck about this podcast. Kobe Bryant did. Like, Kobe gone. And I think I may have cracked a joke with him or somebody else because I was crying. And I was like, God didn't want to take Trump. Like Trump be using... Trump legit takes Air Force One and flies to go play golf all the time. Like, God just didn't want to take him. Like, he just, Trump ain't a couple of his kids, And that might sound harsh, but it was what I felt at the time. Just like Snoop calling Gail out her name. He was pissed off. He was venting because of what she said. Was it correct? No. But I honor his feelings. I honor what he felt because I felt it. I wanted to call out a name, right? And I said what I said about Trump. I really was like God didn't. It was my gossip I was on the phone with because we were in the middle of crying, saying something about one of the parties that we threw in our dorm at Alcorn, and I was like, "So P, you telling me like God could take Trump? Like he could take Trump?" And she just bust out and started laughing. Like I was trying to get myself like out of those tears, but. Like thinking about that day, I was like, okay, Anthony. Anthony kept telling me, well, we should still go ahead and post it. And I was like, well, can we add this? Can we add that? And I became Akila. And I was like, okay, I need to do this. And can we add something about his daughter? Can we add when he says Mamba out in his last game, a couple of highlights from the last game and different things like that. And in that moment, I realized that I needed to, even though he was gone, and it was crazy because I do not know Kobe Bryant personally, even though I feel like it, but I don't. But what I learned in that moment was that he was here for 41 years and he had lived a hell of a life. And if I'm going to live a hell of a life this year, I'm not going to count the years ahead. But if I'm going to live a hell of a life this year, I got to continue to follow my dreams. I got to continue to push myself. So I was like, well, okay, we're not going to drop it in the middle of the day. Let's drop it at midnight or closer to midnight so that it's not on the day. I just felt like I was going to be being disrespectful and I'm just a little crazy. So please forgive me. But I didn't want, to put a flag on his play, like put a flag on what he did. But I also began to think about like, Akila, like, what are you going to do now? Like you have to push yourself because if you think about, and Marquita and I had just held a conversation about his daughter, Gianna, like a week before. Like we had just held like this conversation and we were talking about, I think he did an interview somewhere and he was like, somebody told him like, you need to go ahead and try to have a little boy. And he was like, Gianna got mad and was like, nah, she got this. Like, like she was going to be the next him. And I was like, man, like that little baby at 13 knew exactly what she wanted to do. And then I thought about the fact that at 9, I knew I wanted to write poetry. At 9, I knew I wanted to start my own business. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur at 9. And I had not followed those dreams just because, you get off and you think about being secure in life and you're afraid to start something. And what I thought about was like, Kobe was never afraid. Like he was never afraid of a challenge. He was never afraid to do the things that he wanted to do. So I thought about how was I going to challenge myself? And I was like, well, Akila, when your podcast drop, every time something drops, listen to it, find another way, watch another video on something, ask Anthony 50 million questions, text your friends that have podcasts and talk to them about it. It's like push yourself to find something because every time I'm trying to get better. So I promised myself that after that day, like after January 26th, like Akila, you have to keep pushing. And plus the reason that I wanted to drop the podcast on January 26th was because it was a month after my birthday. It was a month into the new year. And I'd already dropped my book on the 3rd. And if you know anything about me, I believe in numbers and signs and different things like that. And 3 is my favorite number. My birthday is on the 26th. So these particular things were aligning and happening. I was like, well, I got to do this and I got to do that. And I think that in that moment of thinking about like, no, don't do this because you're like, nobody's going to pay attention because of Kobe. As I was talking to Anthony today, that particular podcast is the most viewed podcast that I have to date. And I dropped it. We dropped at midnight, right? We dropped at midnight. And it is the most viewed one that I have. And it's talking about like understanding your worth. And I believe that in Kobe's confidence, he continually knew his worth. He knew his worth. He knew the worth of his kids. He knew the worth of his wife. He knew the worth of representing a black male in society in a positive way. And I admonish not just black men, but black women to be the best that you can be. Think about what it is that your dash is. What is it that you're creating? What is the legacy that you're leaving behind for yourself, for your family, for whomever? If you're a teacher, for the students you teach. If you're a carpenter, for the people who follow behind you. Whatever your task is, whatever your job is, what is it that you're leaving behind for others? How are you affecting change? How are you inspiring? How are you helping someone see the best in themselves? If you go on my website, I say something about I'm inspiring the next brilliant minds and I want to help them to light their path. That's what I'm attempting to do. I want my legacy to be that Akilah, no matter what, was as real as she could be. She helped us as best as she could, and she did those things that she wanted to do in life, right? And she lit a path for people. Not necessarily saying that I lit a path for you to follow, but I lit a path that lit up some things in you and you decided to create your own, because you don't necessarily have to follow everybody's path. So I want to close out this particular podcast by saying, think about your legacy. Think about who it is that you're serving. And it's always, my dad always says, like, it's better to be a giver than to be a receiver. And I think that's before he would tell me that, I always had a mindset of serving. So think about who it is and what you're serving. Think about how you can help others and what you can do for others. And remember to, like, as I say, keep on being excellent. That's my KOBE. Keep on being excellent at everything that you do. Thank you so much for watching 30 Something and Verging. Please catch us on episode 9. Y'all have a great night.
Once again.
ABC News confirming the 5-time NBA champion for the Los Angeles Lakers was among 5 people killed when a helicopter crashed and caught fire in Southern California.
Heartbreaking news, Kobe Bryant and his daughter, his 13-year-old daughter, Gianna, passed away in a helicopter accident in Calabasas early Sunday morning. It is heartbreaking.
I can't believe how fast 20 years went by. I mean, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And, you know, to be standing here at center court with you guys, my teammates behind me, and appreciating all this, you know, the journey that we've been on. You know, we've been through our ups and been through our downs. And I think the most important part is that we all stayed together throughout. You know, I grew up a diehard Laker fan. Die-hard. I mean, I knew everything about every player that's ever played here. So to be drafted and then traded to this organization and to spend 20 years here, I mean, you can't write something better than this. What can I say? Mamba out.